Hello and welcome to Kikao, your weekly guide to Africa's agriculture. My name is Joe Agayo. This week we ask the question, is agriculture on the continent on track? And how can it be made to work for Africa? In a short while we'll be answering that question and many others, but first here is a scene setter.
Africa, for example, the population is really growing. The farmers in Africa are aging, the traditional farmers, and we really need to get more youth into agriculture. So that means that we really need to make agriculture less treacherous for the youth so that they can get more involved, so that they can look at agriculture as a business rather than a problem and something that breaks your back out there in the field. So I think it's a matter of technologies, making sure that we get the right financing for that. And then when I talk about financing, we go back to the Malabo Declaration of 2002 and make sure that the governments are really committing the money that needs to be committed to make agriculture work.
Let's now get some answers from our eminent panel for the week, and for that we join Dr. Canisius Kanangire, the Executive Director of AATF.
It is common knowledge that the agricultural sector dominates the economies of most countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The sector accounts for about 42% of the gross domestic product in low-income countries and 27% in middle-income countries, according to FAO. Agriculture-led growth has played an important role in reducing poverty and transforming the economies of many Asian countries. But the strategy is yet to fully work in Africa. Most African countries are yet to meet the requirements for a successful agricultural revolution, and productivity in African agriculture lags far behind the rest of the world. There is a renewed debate within the international development community on the role of agriculture, particularly small farmers, in pushing forward Africa's economic development. In this edition of Kikao, we dig deeper into the role of agriculture in Africa's economic development. I'm your host, Dr. Canisius Kanangire, Executive Director, AATF, and my guest today is Dr. Martin Fregene, Director of Agriculture and Agro-Industry at the African Development Bank. Welcome, Dr. Fregene.
Thank you very much, Dr. Canisius.
Could you tell the viewers who you are?
Okay. So my name is Martin Fregene, Director of Agriculture and Agro-Industry at the African Development Bank. I am responsible at the bank for the implementation of the bank's Feed Africa strategy. It's a very bold and ambitious strategy to reverse the falling per capita production of food on the continent. We do that by taking a value chain approach, increasing productivity, value addition, innovative financing, and of course inclusivity, young people and women. Yeah.
Tell me, Dr. Fregene, is agriculture capable of really transforming our continent's economy?
Okay, I think Africa is part of the global community, and there is no other country, apart from maybe Singapore, who has developed without the initial development of the agricultural sector. You can look from the 1790 revolution in England, the very first agricultural revolution in England, all the way to the rest of Europe, the US, Asia. It has always started with increased productivity in agriculture that allowed people to move off the farm into other sectors of the economy. You need the abundance of food for populations to thrive and do well. Yeah. So Africa will not be different. We are definitely going to have to develop our agricultural sector, and from there build other sectors. And I believe very strongly that the agricultural sector will develop. It's already developing.
Yeah, and when we talk of Africa and our resources, we point out on the immense arable land that we have in Africa. We have a huge potential. Then, why is it that Africa is operating far below the potential in this area of agriculture?
You can point to like three major reasons. You know, the basis of all progress is innovation. Technologies have transformed agriculture all around the world. Productivity of crops, mechanization that makes it more productive and also cost less. And also you have, you know, chemical protectives that actually protect plants from pests and diseases. So in Africa, the first thing is the technologies are not reaching the farmers at scale. Farmers all across Africa, only about 20% of them actually use improved seeds that come from genetic improvements. Also, only about 20% of them use certified seeds, seeds that have at least 80% germination and at least 80% purity. That is a big problem. So that's the first thing. Our farmers have low productivity because of lack of access to technology.
So the potential of agriculture in Africa is far to be reached because of so many challenges going from the technology. And technology here we are talking of seed technology, but also mechanization. We are still very much using a hoe to feed ourselves and think of feeding the whole continent. And you talk about small pieces of land. So yesterday I was in a workshop with a minister who was saying actually a farmer who has no access to the market is a gardener. And he was saying in Africa we have too many gardeners. And indeed we have smallholder farmers who cannot produce more than what they need for their consumption, and therefore they don't have anything to bring to the market, leave alone that the market system is not very well developed. I think those are many challenges. But when we started, we say parts of the world have been able to do it, and you gave some examples of the European and other continents where the current industrial development has been preceded by the agricultural development with increased productivity. Let's take a break, and when we come, we see those factors that worked elsewhere. Welcome to Kikao. What did some countries in Asia and probably in Latin America do well to succeed in this agricultural transformation?
If there was one word that can be said to transform African agriculture, is increased productivity. All the way from Britain, as I mentioned earlier, the very first agricultural revolution happened in Britain. It was done because of improved genetics of fertilizer, just simple crop rotation. Then the next one happened in the United States with hybrid maize. Again, it was improved productivity. The next one that happened after that was in Mexico. I'm sure you've heard about the wheat revolution in Mexico, the dwarf varieties. Then that continued in India and Pakistan. Then it continued also in Brazil. I'm sure you have heard about the opening up of the cerrados, of the savanna. All through all that, the common theme has been increased productivity through better management, crop management like it happened in Britain, or through improved genetics, or through a combination of managing the soil properly. Acid soils in Brazil, they were converted by liming, and then of course improved genetics. The productivity is so important because it gives the farmer a better return for his investment. But it's also very important because it allows the farmer to enter into markets. Why is Africa importing maize and wheat from Ukraine? It's because it is cheap. $250 wheat landed in most African ports. We cannot produce wheat at that kind of price. it's all about productivity. Productivity makes you competitive in entering the market. So Africa has missed out on the productivity for two reasons, mostly two reasons. Yes. There is a system that is required for technology to reach farmers. Like, when a new variety is improved, is produced, it has a very small number of seeds. Yes. Farmers also don't know about it. There has to be a way to bulk up those seeds for farmers to access it. Then farmers have to know about it through demonstration trials, And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, governments must have a policy that actually creates incentives for the private sector to take that technology to farmers. In Africa, we found out that the national agricultural research systems that actually should be responsible in the seed system, production of early generation seeds, are very weak. They have well-trained people, but often they don't have the resources to do that. And then secondly, the policies on the seed systems are actually lacking. Some African countries have no laws about, whether you can sell certified seed or sell grain and certified seeds. So all that conspires to keep our productivity at about a third of global averages. But I think this is all changing now. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope it will change quickly. So, because we can see, you talked about adoption of technology. You talked about, I would call it the right agricultural practice to master agronomy by practicing the rotation. That made already a big improvement in the European continent. And you talk about policies. You talk about resources, and we know that there are so many commitments. Let me just emphasize one thing, or request you to emphasize one thing. What did we do then wrong? Is it on policies? Is it because we committed to put 10% of the GDP in agriculture and we didn't do it? What is that? The two major things that we should correct if we want this agriculture to contribute really to the economic development.
I'll use an example of Ethiopia and wheat to show what we are not doing right and how doing it right can actually transform the sector. Ethiopia, like in the 1980s, was globally known as a country with great deficits in food. There was requests for food all around the world. Fast forward to today, Ethiopia is self-sufficient in wheat production. How did it happen? Ethiopia is the largest producer of wheat, one of the largest producers of wheat on the African continent. But we also know that Ethiopia, there are two major agroecologies for wheat production, the highlands and then the lowlands. Yeah. The highlands, Ethiopia has already been producing wheat for centuries on the highlands. Yeah. But the lowlands, very hot, but there's a lot of water. There was no production there. Ethiopia took the decision way back in 2000 to develop its wheat sector by introducing heat-tolerant varieties of wheat. And also introducing a different approach of growing wheat. They cluster the farmers together. So you have like 20 to 80 farmers clustered on about 100 hectares of land. Yeah. There you can provide them inputs, can provide them extension, provide them mechanization, and you can also organize the harvest. Ethiopia developed between 2006 until today 650,000 hectares of wheat in the lowlands. That produced an additional 1.6 million tons of wheat. And the country now no longer imports wheat, and they're actually looking to eventually export wheat.
Do we have some key lessons we could draw from Asia, from Latin America, which would help improve the efficiency of investment in Africa's agriculture?
Yes, we do have key lessons. And I will use just two countries, India and Brazil.
India and Brazil.
Yeah. India and Brazil developed the agricultural sector through local R&D. The Indian National Agricultural Research System and the Brazilian Embrapa, which you all know, they are very strong. They have personnel, they have resources, and they have facilities. And it is that technology that these local people were able to adapt to their farmers, that actually raise productivity. Also, they have very good extension. So that's the first thing. Africa cannot run away from developing its national agricultural research systems. Today, we have a declining support, declining budgets for national agricultural research systems. That is on the way to go. That's the first thing. Secondly, we need the right policies. Policies, not just on agriculture, but policies for trade.
Yes.
You cannot allow the African farmer, who for so many decades has been neglected, to compete with other farmers in Latin America. There has to be some sort of trade policies that actually protects the farmer.
And years back, we had a very good extension service, but in most countries in Africa, it stopped. So leaving the farmer on his or her own. Let's take a break. And when we come, we will look again to what we need to do. What we need to do in a key elements that a country that want to transform its agricultural sector into a vital and profitable sector to do. Welcome back to Kikao. Dr. Fregene, we talked about the need to improve productivity. We talked about the need to bring in technologies and also the support from governments. But there is one partnership we have not talked about very much. It is the private sector, the financial type of sector, the bankers and others, to bring in the means and transform agriculture into an agro-industrial pole zone, which could then add value and bring about that economic development that we need. Could you talk about that need and where we are in Africa in linking productivity to the transformation of agricultural produces?
As a matter of fact, agro-processing is one of the big areas of growth, because Africa today only adds about $90 per ton to its produce compared to the global average of $180. So this is an area of huge growth. And like many companies, businessmen are very rational people. They look for opportunities. And then they see agriculture as also one of the very good areas to add value, because we have a growing population. Nobody eats rice, with the husk. You have to, dehusk millet. So there's a real opportunity there. But the businessman also needs three things. He needs feedstock. He needs a constant supply of good quality feedstock. He also needs infrastructure. He needs power to run his machines. He needs roads to bring in and take out the produce, and also bring in the feedstock and take out the final product. And he also needs policies, regulatory policies, that create a level playing field so that he can invest his money and can get a good return. So the bank is actually trying to do all that, what we call as special agro processing zones, or SAPZs. It's a special intervention where we create an area where you have the infrastructure, and also it's an area of abundant production, so you have robust supply chains. And then, of course, we have incentives of financing for the business people. And right now we have about 9 of them all across the African continent. But it's not just that, not just the bank. Many other people, the World Bank. Here in Uganda, you have the industrial parks also, agro-industrial parks, similar as you also have in Ethiopia. So there is that knowledge, there's that consciousness that you really need to increase agricultural processing. But having said that, another very important thing for agro-processing is that we compete with others. Others also import. We also import, so we compete with them. So it is very important that the policy framework is really good for us to be able to at least compete. There's the case of rice. Rice is like, is a crop that Africans eat more of. 6% increase annual consumption of rice all across the continent. But you know that we have Vietnam, we have Thailand, we have India all producing rice. Our local processors have to compete with those. Yes. With those. So we have to be competitive. Very important. So any policy that will make us competitive, policies to support the farmers with inputs, policies to support infrastructure, policies to take out all the illegal, obstacles in moving things back and forth, and also finance, access to credit. So agro-processing is necessary, but you definitely need government intervention. Similar to productivity, there has to be a will by the government and the right policies to ensure that the private sector can come in. Private sector, they are businessmen. They want to make money. Yes. And it's either they import and sell, or the process.
Or they process, yes.
But you see, there's a recent study that has been done by the Gates Foundation. It shows that it's 10 times more costly to process locally in Africa than to just import and sell. 10 times more.
10 times more. And you can see today, because we have turned our attention to outside source of those imported produces, we have forgotten to develop our own sector. And when there are crises like COVID-19 and the Russia war, then everything is in jeopardy. I think it is a wake-up call that we need to take into account, that we need to increase productivity, to look at what we eat and make it a priority for our production, but also process so that we can compete with others.
Well, I see Africa, honestly, I see Africa growing its agricultural sector by an average of 3 to 4% yearly, and into becoming a $1 trillion industry by 2030. I see that happening.
Yeah, thank you very much. I like the end, which is very optimistic. In this Kikao, we have seen that for agriculture in Africa to contribute significantly to the economic development, we need absolutely to increase productivity. I thank you very much for your attention. I want to thank Dr. Fregene for all the insights shared with us, and invite you to the next Kikao. Thank you very much for today, and God bless you.
And now to our science terminology of the week, and for that we get Science Speak. For this week, the word is saprophyte. Now, saprophyte is an organism that lives on dead or decaying organic matter. These tend to be certain types of fungi or even bacteria. And that's the lay of the land. Vast opportunities in the agricultural sector, but everybody will have to play their part. Thank you very much for watching Kikao. Until next time, my name is Joe Agayo.